All right, welcome in, everybody. Important Nonsense Podcast. 32 teams in 32 days. Steve Bonham, Neil Smith, Mike Manning. Today we've got Miami going through the Dolphins. And Neil, again, last season they ruined your favorite joke, but I'll let you do it anyway if you want. I mean,
no, it's ruined forever. We can't go back. Okay, I'm going to turn into a pillar of salt. The NFL this year, my one gripe about the NFL this year is I've had to go rework so much material.
Right.
All my favorite jokes are just up in flames. I can't even with the NFL right now. I've had to whiteboard so much material. So much of it's been left on the cutting room floor. It's a disaster.
Yeah, Neil's favorite joke used to be, why does the dolphin have the dolphin helmet with the little dolphin on it? The helmet has the logo on the helmet.
If it's true, Mike, if you look at it, the dolphin, the dolphin also is on the helmet, is also wearing a helmet. No one can explain to me why that's the artistic choice that they made, but it's true. If you look at it closely, the little dolphin on the helmet also has his own little helmet, and I've never been able to understand.
They changed the logo last season and
they changed the logo, and they ruined it forever.
And they ruined his joke. It was
they ruined my favorite
running bit, and can't do it.
No, the longest running bit is Jerry Jones drinking Johnny Walker Blue out of a human skull. I've been making that joke since like 2005.
And unlike the man he got that
never
stuff
not
from, it'll never die. Mike, feelings about Miami? Excited? You pumped up?
I mean, it's an interesting team, to say the least, but we don't know anything about what's going to go on.
Way to bury the lead. Show's over, folks. 2 minutes.
Right.
We did it.
We are
there you go.
pre-recording this on August 3rd, so if any of the information seems out of date, that would be why. Everything is for 12-team PPR, but as always, patreon.com/importantnonsense. If you have any questions, follow-ups, whatever, jump on there, hop in the Discord, ask us anything, get our episodes these 2 days earlier. You get our rankings, you get our projections in the $5 tier, you get the stat book, which is invaluable. Also, let's see, when is this going to air? I don't know, like 2 weeks ago. We had Dave Fiorella on Jack Knows Best. Good time talking about the stat book and going through all of that. And if you didn't catch it, he dressed up like Jack. It was chef's kiss. It was amazing.
Yeah. I was wondering if you were going to mention that or just
it was fantastic.
Figure it out.
If he didn't know, I was going to.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I said it in the last year. It was now Dave Fiorella Knows Best, and he took that very literally. So we ran with it and had a lot of fun. But yeah, go back and check that out. Check that out every Monday. Jack Knows Best. Tua Tagovailoa. What do we think? Make or break season for Tua, obviously. He's been given weapons. I mean, I guess we said that last year, but this year, really, he's been given weapons. And now he's got a new coaching staff around him. And again, he's in that tier for me of Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, the upside guys, the come on, do something, poking him with a stick tier. That's basically what that is. So is there anybody who's more bullish on Tua than I am? Like, we all have him rated basically the same, but does anybody have him tiered out or projected out where they think he could actually hit a top 12 season this year?
No, I have him in tier 5, little upside tier, as I've been referring to it. That's
my tier 5 too, but it's the poke him with a stick. I just have different terminology for mine.
Yeah, and I have him near the bottom of it. Because we've seen this before. You mentioned make or break season. Obviously, this is going to be the make or break season for him. And you mentioned that he has weapons, which we'll go through and you're seeing on the screen. I mean, this is it, folks. If he can't get it done with this supporting cast, he's going to get the giant vaudeville hook, and they're going to get him off the stage. But he still has enough upside. There's still so much that we haven't seen, and with the new coaching staff and the tweaks to the offensive system, I'm willing to go one more round if he's my backup. I would not recommend him having him be your starter, but if he was my backup, I will be okay with it.
Right now, he's going at QB 16. So he's going, what is that, about 2 full rounds behind Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr, behind that tier. So, I mean, there's a non-zero chance you could get Kirk Cousins as your one and take Tua a couple rounds later, and you've got the floor and potentially ceiling. You know,
We've talked about that on several shows. You can do the same thing with Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Staple it together.
Yep.
Mike, you had some interesting notes here, though, on Tua, just as it relates to some of the kind of interesting statistical wonkiness. So I'm curious. You want to share that with the people?
I mean, as we've seen in the past 2 seasons, he doesn't like to target downfield, which is why everybody's been making jokes about Tyreek Hill being underthrown in various training camp and off-season videos. He had the 4th lowest ADOT last year among quarterbacks. He missed 3 games because of fractured ribs whenever he got just annihilated from behind in, I think it was Buffalo that he was playing against. And then he missed another game with a fractured finger. So obviously he had the hip injury that in his final year at Alabama. Has been the epitome of health.
And that caused him to miss the first half of his rookie season. So
yeah. So that's not ideal. And he hasn't shown the upside yet, that's for sure. He's only scored 20 points in 4 of his 20 games that he's played, at least passing 10 times. Because we know he starts a game the rookie year and then got pulled, and there was that whole back and forth between him and Fitzpatrick. So he would like play some and not play some.
Bring in the closer.
Yeah. So he hasn't shown upside yet. But obviously, if you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle on your offense, you have the talent around you to have upside. Just don't know if he'll do it.
Running back. Chase Edmonds.
God, he's such a
He's
mess.
the lead back? Question mark? Or lead back in quotes? I don't know. However you want to put it. He's the lead back in many eyes, both in terms of talent and contract. That is very true. Tua was 26th in the NFL in running back target rate in 2021. Same scheme that allowed a different running back to lead the team in rushing each of the past 5 years. And Raheem Mostert, Sony Michel, Myles Gaskin, who I love but won't make the team, Savon Ahmed, who's been good, but I also believe won't make the team. So they have plenty of weird depth on this roster, but yes, bringing over the system from San Francisco, probably going to be a revolving door at running back, but at the same time, Edmonds is coming over from Arizona, where he shared the workload with James Conner, and the reports were that he had multiple offers. Who were the 2? I know the one that stuck out to me was Buffalo, but there was somebody else. I don't remember the second one. But Edmonds got 3 offers. One was Buffalo, one was Miami, and one was another team I can't remember. And they were all basically the same amount of money. And he chose to go to Miami because he felt like the scheme would work best for him in terms of getting him touches and how they would block for him and how he could thrive. So he's getting paid the most money. I feel like he's the most talented of anybody out there. So to me, I'm in on Chase Edmonds as the starting running back here. And I believe that, again, he's got some decent upside and you can get him at a relative discount right now.
I mean, not to put a too fine a point on it, but he's really the only Dolphin running back I'm actually interested in for meaningful work for your fantasy team. And we've seen this movie before from Edmonds. He's an above average pass catcher. He's great with the ball in space. He can run between the tackles. I question his durability if they ask him to do that too much, but he can physically do it. And he will get some level of goal line work, particularly when they go hurry up or if it's third down. You better believe he's going to be in there. He's the one that I'm interested in. He's the only one that I think is meaningfully worth rostering in a draft. And to be honest, this just screams car wash. I don't know how many of those guys you rattled off will actually make the team or who might wind up on practice squad or how this whole thing is going to settle eventually. But Edmonds is the only one that I have any kind of real confidence in, and then the rest of it gets muddy very, very, very quickly. But we've all got him rated about the same. I mean, I think we've probably all got him within the same tier. I bet it's just an ordering issue, as we've talked about on previous shows.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, do you have any concerns about Chase Edmonds that we haven't touched on?
No, I like Edmonds. I think he's going to play well because of his efficiency. Because throughout his career, he hasn't really been a bell cow style back almost any point of his career. Even when injuries occurred around him, he was kind of limited. Like there was few games that he hit 20 plus carries or something along those lines. But with the touches he gets, both in the carries and the receiving game, he makes the most of them. He's electric. He makes big plays, and obviously is a very reliable receiver. So I think that in general, yeah, Edmonds is a good player that's going to be behind a bad offensive line. I'm just going to be interested in this scheme and how it's going to, because if they really make this a full blown committee between everyone involved, or are we going to see something similar to like Elijah Mitchell just plain taking over last year? Could go either way. But Edmonds is the talent, and Edmonds is the money in the backfield.
Yeah. I think we all agree Edmonds at the top, and then it's just what's behind him. So like I said, I think Gaskins and Ahmed, they don't make the team. So it's really just between Raheem Mostert, the ghost of Raheem Mostert, and Sony Michel. To me, Sony Michel thrived in that system with the Rams, which is why he got this contract, getting away from New England. But even still, he was okay. He's a usable NFL running back, but he's not really somebody I'm interested at all in fantasy. And he's not a pass catcher. He never has been. He's not utilized in the passing offense at all. So to me, of the backups, Michel is the better between the tackles, goal line guy. Mostert is the better pass catcher, and I think he slides into that backup third down running back role, whereas Edmonds is the guy that can do both. Mm-hmm. So if Edmonds were to go down, it becomes even more of a committee. But I think on first and second down and maybe occasionally in the red zone, Sony Michel is the guy who will come in and spell Edmonds. On third down, it'll be Mostert, and they'll just work in and eat at each other until both of them ultimately have zero value.
Remember our conversation from years gone by about Sony Michel is bad at football?
Yeah.
I'm just going to dust that off because it really is all you need to know. Go through all the advanced metrics you want. It's really that simple. He's like below average NFL level. Sony Michel's role on this team is to take the abuse, to run that ball into the brick wall behind a bad O-line and just stick your nose in there and deal with it. That's his job. I firmly believe it because I think the Dolphins would have to know that as much as injury prone is a myth, Raheem Mostert has had some issues with getting hurt. And so is Chase Edmonds a little bit. And what do we do in those situations? Well, I'll get a body. I'll get Sony Michel in here. He'll donate his body for this cause, have him do the real dirty work. And Chase Edmonds is the one that, to your point, he should be able to do both. I think they're going to ask him to do both, and I think he's the one you want to deal with. Mostert is the one that will spell him in the actual third down RB role and will get some level of rushing. We've seen him do it before. They're familiar with him from their time with the 49ers. So that's why he's there. It'll be fine. But I have so little confidence in this that I have Chase Edmonds at RB 25, right? So I've got him at the top part of third running back, flex running back, effectively. I've got Mostert and Michel right next to each other at 55 and 56. I just have zero confidence in either one of those two. I don't think any of it's draftable. I think Edmonds is the only one that's draftable. The rest of it should just be stuff you know about for the waiver wire. And even then, I don't know how excited I'm going to get about it. And I'll second the idea that Gaskin and Ahmed either are buried on the depth chart or don't even make the team.
Or they wait till Mostert gets hurt and then they just bring him back to the team.
There you go. That too.
Something like that. Yeah.
Sure.
100%.
Yeah.
We have so little confidence in this. I don't think anybody has.
Yeah, that's the basis of it. Like some people are willing to take the flyer on Chase Edmonds being a solid contributor to fantasy because of him being the lead guy in what's expected to be a pretty good offense. And some people are willing to take the chance on Michel thinking it's going to be more of a committee than others. It's just not exciting to take Michel.
And to those people, I have a bridge that I'd like to sell you in New York. If anybody gets that literary reference. hit me up. Get in my DMs.
I think that's about it.
No, you're right. And again, we're talking about this being similar to the San Francisco offense, right? So not last year, obviously, because of the Debo thing that makes it weird, but really 2 years ago, where Mostert only played half the season, but he was like the bell cow in that offense in the games that he was playing. That's kind of the role that Chase Edmonds is going to be in here, where he does basically everything, whereas Mostert steps into what would essentially be the Jerick McKinnon from 2 years ago, where he's primarily a pass catcher, doesn't get a lot of between the tackles. And then you've got Jeff Wilson, who's Sony Michel. He's a guy. He's there. He's going to take carries. He's going to do some work for you, and he's going to be decent, in your system for an NFL team, but not for fantasy purposes. All right, wide receiver. Boy, this is just the collision of two hype trains. Just massive explosion. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I know you were all thinking I was talking about Cedric Wilson, but no. It's Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. The rest of this is completely useless. There's nothing else you care about or want to know about in this wide receiver room. It's all garbage.
We don't want to talk about Preston Williams for the fourth year in a row?
We don't.
Oh, I'm going home.
Williams wants you to talk about Preston Williams.
I saw that. Well, yeah, he sure does.
So Tyreek, of course, coming over with the big trade from Kansas City, which was pretty surprising because they wanted to pay him and wanted to make him the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL to stay in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes. And he said, nah, I'm good. Because that's Tyreek Hill. And Jalen Waddle, who was at one point top 10, I believe, wide receiver last season.
You're welcome, America.
During his hot stretch. He finished as wide receiver 13 in total points, but I know there was a stretch in there where he was a top 10 guy.
Yeah.
So who becomes the alpha? It's got to be Tyreek, right? And then if he's the alpha, what does that leave for Jalen Waddle? What's left over? So, Neil, how do you see these two guys fighting it out for target share at the top?
I hate to reference the it's somewhat of a paint by numbers argument, but Mike actually made it yesterday. Relates to Devontae Adams, and it's pretty simple. You don't spend this kind of capital and bring a Tyreek Hill caliber player to your team to not feature him. So I think Tyreek is the one who ends up becoming the quote unquote alpha. And then you have a situation with Jalen Waddle, which is kind of frustrating. Because for those of you who were with us last year, I wrote several glowing articles about Jalen Waddle and about the Dolphins' schedule and about how he was the number one wide receiver trade target down the stretch. Had to get him. That all came to fruition. The problem with Jalen Waddle now is that Waddle seems to be being drafted at around the pace he was at production-wise last year. And that doesn't really account for the idea that they brought in Tyreek Hill unless you're suddenly going to make the argument that you think the Dolphins are going to become a more efficient passing team and also a more pass-happy team. I'm not convinced about those second two things there. Passing more, sure. More efficient? You'd have to prove that to me. So the issue becomes, I think Tyreek Hill is going to eat first. He's going to be your one. He's going to be the alpha. They're going to feature him left, right, and center. And then Waddle, I don't think you can really project Waddle to have the pace, to be at the pace that he was on last year. So for me, I've got Tyreek at his normal spot, which is 9, 10, 11. And then I've got Waddle down in the 20s, like in that neighborhood. But that's not really... I'm hedging a little bit, and that's not how I see the public going. The public wants to put Tyreek Hill at his normal spot, and they want to put Jalen Waddle.
Is still not what his normal spot should be.
Right. We'll get into that in a moment. I was going to let you talk about that because that's historically your argument, so I was going to leave that for you. But you're correct. And then the other part of it is they want to put Waddle to go right back into what he was doing last year, and I'm like, you can't. That math doesn't make any sense. To your point about the collision of the hype trains, this doesn't make any sense to me. So I think both assets are being inflated. And so this becomes one of those situations where I just don't think I'll be able to roster any of it.
Yeah, Mike, you've got some great notes here. You want to go through that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, we are having two players that are coming together that are really similar in their production over the last season. They both played over half in the slot, which was they were only one of about 5 wide receivers that saw over 100 targets and played in the slot over half the time. Each Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were one of those 5. So somebody has to. I mean, they're not going to all be in the slot. Again, this is Jacksonville with somebody's got to move outside.
Yeah, somebody has to play out.
They were both massive yards after catch players. They were both top 12 in that too, which is good for a player like Tua that loves the low average depth of target. So that's helpful. And they were both had over 23% target share for the team. Well, that's obviously going to change.
Right.
They can't both be around that kind of massive target share. Although I do think that this offense is going to be focused on Tyreek Hill, moving him around, sending him in the backfield, things along those lines. He's going to be more of the chess piece that goes all over the place for Coach. What is his name? Why am I drawing a blank there? McDaniel. Yeah, for Coach McDaniel. And then Waddle's going to be the one that stays along the line of scrimmage and just gets his routes, crossing routes and things along those lines that he excelled at last year so well. I think that Gesicki's going to just plunder, and I don't think the running backs are going to be featured very much in the passing game. So this is going to be that two-headed monster, which is something that isn't uncommon, isn't crazy to have happen. You can have 2 wide receivers that feast in fantasy on the same team. The Chargers did it last year. They had 2 top 12 wide receivers in Mike Williams and Keenan Allen for total points. You didn't like how every week went for them. But
yeah, that's true.
Well, look, I think you made the perfect comparison here. Is Jalen Waddle goes from being the expected alpha in the offense to the number 2, but more in a way that T. Higgins is the number 2 than the normal, wide receiver 2 on an offense. And I think that's an excellent way to put it. And it's a fantastic apples to apples comparison because in my projections and rankings, I have Jamar Chase at 9 and T. Higgins at 19. And very similarly, I've got Tyreek Hill at 15 and Jalen Waddle at 25. It's essentially the exact same thing, except they're on a worse offense. That's really all it is.
It is an offense that's expected to pass less than Cincinnati. Yeah. So there you go.
And like you said, it's a downtick from Mahomes for Tyreek Hill. They can't both be over 23% in target share. And they can't both live in the slot. They can't share literally everything. Yep. And last season, when they played on 2 separate teams and dominated 2 separate offenses, Tyreek Hill was wide receiver 6 and Jalen Waddle was wide receiver 13. Right now in ADP, Tyreek Hill is going 8 and Jalen Waddle is going 15. So they're being drafted like they're going to finish exactly the same they did last year, except now they're on the same team. There's not enough balls to go around in this offense. It's just not possible.
It's exactly the point I was making. They've the public seems to think that these two individuals are still playing on their respective teams previously, or something is going to have to dramatically change with attempts and accuracy and efficiency.
So again, it's not even that I don't like Tyreek Hill, but it's not that I don't like Jalen Waddle. It's just that in this specific offense, I don't think there's a way that they both can finish as high as you think they would. Or if you tell me that one of them finishes as a top 10 wide receiver, I mean, then my natural response would be, okay, well, then the other one's outside the top 30. It would just have to be. If they had enough volume to be a top 10 wide receiver like Tyreek Hill is currently going, there's no way there's enough left over for Jalen Waddle for him to be in the top 30. Can't do it. Unless Tua has the greatest season of all time. Puts up some Pat Mahomes type numbers.
Do you want to do your Tyreek Hill yearly touchdown regression analysis conversation?
I mean,
here?
I don't necessarily have to. Right now, he's, like I said, ECR 8. You both have him at 9. He's going to 8 in ADP. I've got him at 15. It's not as low as it normally is. But yes, I've mentioned it so many times over the past, and it's going to be different now because it's a different offense. But if you take away the touchdowns, if every time Tyreek Hill caught the ball and ran with it, he was tackled at the 1, or he tripped on an invisible cobblestone and just couldn't get over that goal line, then weekly he would average about wide receiver 36. But because he ended up in the end zone so consistently, he was constantly in the top 10. Just is what it is. So if he goes on to a lower scoring volume offense, getting into the top 10 is going to be much more difficult for him. He's going to have to get more catches and put up more yardage than he ever has before. Do you want to talk about anybody else in the wide receiver room? Because, like I said, I don't.
They don't really matter, but I will say this. I think it's pretty funny that they went and got Cedric Wilson from Dallas to play slot. So you have actually 3 slot guys effectively
right
on your team. And they did the Cedric Wilson deal before the Tyreek Hill thing. So it's almost like just watching it, it's like, what is the thought process? I don't understand. But just understand.
Well, that I can understand because they signed him thinking they needed to help Waddle,
right,
never thinking they'd be able to get a Tyreek Hill.
So, but the net of that is now you have 3 slot guys, and it's like, okay, they can't all play in the slot. And Cedric Wilson did play outside a little bit, but all I would say about Cedric Wilson is this. Know who that individual is, because he is a decent enough player in his own right. He's not amazing, but he's had some flashes, and the greater reason to know who he is, if something was to happen to either Waddle or Hill, Wilson would become interesting. I wouldn't draft it, but it's something that I would know that it exists because it's an interesting thing on the waiver wire. He would be a very hot waiver wire pickup if something was to happen to one of the other 2.
Yeah, I don't have much interest in it because I just think that the big appeal for these 2 wide receivers in an offense that has been, if it's anything similar to what has been ran in San Fran for the past handful of years, it's going to be a slow-paced offense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not going to have the most passing attempts in the world. So the yak was the big playability, essentially, was the biggest thing for Hill and Waddle, 2 of the fastest wide receivers in the NFL. Cedric Wilson isn't like that. That's not his strength. So is he going to have his weeks occasionally? Sure. I'm sure that he'll catch a touchdown here or there, or he'll do a fake pass like he did in Dallas last year a handful of times, but I have very little interest.
So tight end Mike Gesicki. Here's the reason that I think Cedric Wilson doesn't super matter. I think more than likely, if something were to happen to Waddle or Hill, like we're talking about here, Wilson may get more run on the outside, but I think it just means more volume for whoever's left standing, plus Mike Gesicki, who's the guy that's more familiar to Tua than the new people that he's got added around him here. And Gesicki is okay. He's been historically okay. He's in the mix. He's in that, hey, can he catch a touchdown type category? But again, if we're talking about athleticism and talent among tight end, he's all right. But there's other guys I'd rather have. I don't have him rated as low as you, but again, I don't really care outside the top 5.
I can make this really simple. My Gesicki rating is a lot to do with the fact, and by the way, I agree with you. Cedric Wilson doesn't matter as long as everyone is healthy and doing their job. The reason I'm justifying Tyreek Hill at 9 and Jalen Waddle at 20 is because I think where they're getting that from is directly from Mike Gesicki. I think they're literally reaching into his pie and putting it on the other 2 guys, and now Gesicki's going to be a run block. He's going to block. That's his job now, is to be a blocker, because he's proven that he's not good enough. He certainly can't hold a candle to Hill or Waddle. So for me, that's where the production for those other 2 guys is coming from. That's how I've readjusted the pie. I think that's how that's going to look. And that'll be a little bit of a departure from what we've seen from the old 49ers show, but I think it's personnel dependent. So that's why I have Gesicki the way that I do.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is you don't want to just assume like, oh, well, he's coming over from San Francisco, so it's got to favor the tight end, right? Yeah. Well, that was more George Kittle's the only guy, as opposed to he loves tight ends.
Their wide receivers were bad, and George Kittle is good. This is the opposite problem. So I think they'll make that adjustment personally.
To your point, too, last season, the Dolphins, 28.7% of all targets went to tight end, and only 54.6% went to wide receiver. So in my projections, I basically took 10% off of tight end and put it all to wide receiver to kind of make up that gap. And then just because of catching 4 touchdowns compared to other people in the similar category catching, 2 or 3 at tight end, that's how I got Gesicki up to 12. But that's really it. He's one of those guys where I feel like there's little upside. I don't really care.
Yeah, because if we look at last year, we always say about the tight ends that line up as only wide receivers and how like Kyle Pitts was the poster child. Well, there was actually one player that lined up more at wide receiver than Kyle Pitts did as tight ends. It was Gesicki. So they're going to bring him in, make him block, which is what the reports are in camp. They're trying to improve his blocking because he's going to have to do it in this offense.
Yep.
So you're saying that he's having even like way less chances, worse chances because it's going to be in line instead of out wide, which he's not used to doing. This just stinks to me. Just smells horrible. All of it. In terms of Gesicki, I don't want to touch him in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, it's understandable. I get it. Like I said, I'm not going to knock it. I'm not going to pound the table for him. I think that's part of the reason too. It's another one of those weird things where, yes, technically they had on paper a dominant target share for tight ends, but like you're saying, it was because they were throwing a Gesicki and he was lining up as a wide receiver because they had no wide receivers. They had Will Fuller hurt. They had Jalen Waddle. They had Devontae Parker zombie running around out there.
Preston Williams bad and then hurt.
Yeah. So they didn't have a lot of options. So putting Gesicki out wide made sense, which is how he got a ton of that value. But like we said, he's going to be good enough for me to be in that tier of weird dart throws when I've given up on tight end. Miami's defense should be okay. They are in a position where they have a pretty good schedule that should line up for them. I have them rated. I think I got to have them ahead of their current 8.
They're going around 10, I believe.
They're going at defense 10?
I believe so.
Okay. So if that is the case, then yeah, I got to be ahead of it. Yeah, I'm at 6 on their defense. Just, again, because of where they finished in the division. I still don't buy the Jets, so they get to play the Jets twice a year. Yes, you have to play the Bills twice a season, but I can stream on those weeks. They're going to have a lot of decent opportunities, and they've got decent talent. So if they can come back and have a decent year, they'll be okay. And then Jason Sanders, no thanks. You can find plenty of other kickers. So just keep on keeping on with that one. Closing notes on Miami? Bring back the helmet?
Bring back the helmet is obviously what they should do, but they won't because they're going to taunt me. But
cowards. They
are cowards, but it's all you had the same logo since the 80s and you finally changed it. I don't know what you were thinking. Terrible marketing decision. But in all seriousness, there's just so little we actually really know about this team. I think that's the takeaway for anyone listening to it is we're giving you the best that we can, but this is going to be one of the hardest to predict teams of all the 32. It's going to be really hard. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things we just don't know and can't know.
If you think it's overhyped right now in terms of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, just wait till next season when Tom Brady's on the team.
Exactly.
End the show.
Exactly.
End the show. Just cut it. Don't do outros. Just cut the mics. Just.
I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!